So I'm joined today by Kyp, compliance officer turned business leader. And it's probably that transition that I'm keenest to kind of push you on. But in that, guys, I'm really keen to understand how you've made the move, what differences, and also what you've learned on your journey, if that makes sense. So I guess my first question to you in that, guys, is kind of like, what was your first real breakthrough moment? Where did you see the opportunity to make change, or did it come to you? Or
yeah, so I was in a role at IG, which actually you guys placed me in 2010, in May 2010. 4 years into that role, I'd kind of built the team, built the systems, and done most of the things that I wanted to do, and had a very good team, and was kind of looking for the next project, and it came up internally. And that came from having engaged with the regulator in the UAE and building, working with them on the rules that they wanted to implement retail FX. And we worked with them and then applied for a license. And we were looking for a CEO, couldn't find the right CEO that we wanted. And the group CEO at the time and the group COO said, had that discussion with me. I put my hand up and said, well, I'd quite happily move out to the UAE. This was 2014. And went out there and handed over the team that I had to my deputy Joe. Went into that project. So I went from being the head of compliance to a regional CEO.
So let's break that down a bit more. Like, how did that come about? So you knew there was a role and hadn't said you were up for the role?
Yeah, because my part in the project was to get the license and support the business in getting that license.
Yeah.
I had done that same thing before at previous roles. So I'd been, as a head of compliance, I'd gone out to the UAE, engaged with the regulator, helped hire the local team, and put everything in place and get it going.
Yeah.
And I was doing that again with IG, and I had actually recommended someone for the role. And after a while of speaking to them, the guys decided that wasn't to be. And when they were explaining the reasons to me, I sort of, casually in the meeting said, well, I fit that skill set. Shall I go and do it? And they went, sort of looked at each other and said, well, yeah, why haven't you put your hand up before?
Yeah.
I was in a role and lived in London.
But was that it? You'd never thought about it? You had thought about it?
I hadn't thought about that specific role.
Yeah.
I don't think. I had conversations with my wife about, do we work abroad? Do we stay in the UK? Things like that. When's the right time to do that? Because it depends on other people's careers, family situations, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I think before I had said that, I had the conversation with my wife and said, oh, this is what's happened. Should I put my hand up? And she said, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Now's a good time. I did put my hand up and we went 6 months later.
Yeah. Day one you land, imposter syndrome or?
Not at all, actually.
Yeah.
No. It's very interesting going out there. It wasn't a set up project from the beginning. So, we were in the process of getting the license. Mm-hmm. I had to go out, find temporary working space, mm-hmm. because we had leased an office, but it was being built. Mm-hmm. So it was a really fun situation, actually, of being in an entrepreneurial situation, mm-hmm. but with the backing of a multi-billion-pound market leader. Mm. So it was a great project and fun, and I got to build a really good team and bring a lot of them over from London, actually.
Yeah.
Good times.
Is that the key part in that context of building a good team? It's people that you know and trust. Was that the plan, or?
I don't think it was the plan. The way IG operated at the time was to go and set up an office with a local office head who knew the market and knew the landscape, and usually send a number two, who was a corporate guy who would kind of keep an eye on things and help with systems and report back and things like that. And for me, I was the corporate guy going out there in the number one role, but I managed to recruit a few core people that were keen to move over from London. So I took one particular person over, and then it happened that people that had also been at IG had moved independently to Dubai.
Gotcha.
And I was able to recruit them in Dubai to come and work in my team. So I ended up with a few familiar faces in a customer services actually, so a good core area, and then we hired the rest of the team locally.
Yeah, okay. And silly as it sounds, when you move from one role to another on day one, how do you know what to do? It might sound really silly, but often I speak to people that have gone from head of compliance advisory into head of compliance roles, right? And when they're head of advisory, people come to you with problems all day, every day. You've got to make calls or give rule interpretations or whatever it might be. Suddenly, as a head of compliance, you're in an office on a different floor on your own, and you've got to decide where you start. Surely, as a business head on day one, there's 1,000 things that need doing. That's kind of why I ask on the imposter syndrome, right? It's like, how do you know where to point yourself if no one's leading?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, there's always a management structure. So there were always people that, above I could go to and say, what do you want out of this for X, Y, Z? And they would, the answer is whatever you think is the best thing, just go and do it. Whether it's building an office, buying the furniture, all those kind of things. Amazing what an office head did, down to it's getting the license and negotiating with the regulator, hiring a team of 20 people, going to the hypermarket and buying electrical goods, would the fridge fit there? It's stuff like that. And so a lot of it is just logic, and you have to back yourself in terms of the way you think and the logical way you approach things is the way it should be done, because there's no rule book. There was no rule book in setting up an office in the UAE.
Yeah. So would you say that was the single greatest decision that changed your trajectory in that context, or?
In terms of move from compliance to commercial, yeah, it was a very interesting move. But I think of it as you're corporate assistant sounds terrible, but you're a member of the corporate organisation, and you're moving from playing one role as a head of compliance to playing another role as a regional CEO. And you're still working in the same team. It's still the same. The rules of the game. You know how the committees work. You know how all those things work internally. You're just sitting in a different seat or wearing a different hat, and just approaching things from a slightly different angle. But of course, you're going to peers. You're going to who were your peers, and how you dealt with them as head of compliance, and you then become, it's a slightly different setup, and you're approaching them and asking them different things, sometimes favours.
And how does that engagement work? It might sound silly, but we regularly see people make it up to be head of compliance or head of risk or head of legal from having been a team member, and often move then. And when they call in and say to us, it's time for me to move, the reason is, too many people here remember me as the junior or the mid-level or whatever. So when I'm going and saying, these are the rules now that I'm in charge, they're not taken as seriously as I believe they would be if I went externally and started somewhere. Surely when you go from being the compliance guy to leading a business, is there not front office guys, is there not sales guys, is there not other people that question why you're leading them?
There probably were the odd people that thought that way, but it is actually a very flat structure and meritocratic. So if you were good and you were good in one particular role, you could often move and try different things, and why not?
Okay. And then what about cultural engagement? Like, life here is very different to life in the UAE, is very different to life in swarms of the countries that you've since gone on to oversee and operate within. How do you best engage with that?
Funnily, I got offered a role in the UAE in 2007, I think end of 2007. And I went over, I had a look around, and I said, it's not for me. At that time, it wasn't. And I ended up sending one of my team over, who's still out there now. And he's now worked his way up to a pretty senior position. And it has to be the right cultural fit at the right time in your life, I think. And for me, when I decided that it was right in 2014, I had 2 young children. And, it was actually, what was I doing in London? I was working, going home, being with the family. And I could do that in the UAE, or I could do that in London. Although, the wider family weren't there, it was a good opportunity, I think, a fun thing to do.
Do you think you got more and better family time because of it? One of the things I'm always jealous of with our, Richard, one of the partners of Black Swan, and he's done Singapore, he's doing Dubai now, but he's had live-in help. which is a lot easier than dealing with nannies, nurseries, babysitters, and other bits and pieces in my eyes, certainly. But also where you tend to live closer to where you actually physically work and the sun tends to shine all day, every day, he gets some real high value family time that I don't get living and working in London. By the time I've commuted home, often my daughter's asleep, right?
Yeah.
What have you missed out on because of the roles you've done, and what did you have to change?
Yeah, so I mean, in Dubai, for example, did I have more family time? I'm not sure I did, in terms of, I would drop the kids off at school at 7:15, 7:30, go into the office, and then leave the office around 6 in the evening. Anyway, so by the time I got home, we weren't far off bedtime and things like that. But the weekends were, for adventures. We didn't have the, you might have to edit this bit, but we didn't have the family commitments, wider family commitments and engagements that we had in London. And we could do, as a family of 4, whatever it was that we wanted, go where we wanted, and it was completely up to us. And there weren't a lot of things that we had to do.
And does that include broader travel? I mean, that's one of the things I'm always jealous of with Singapore, right? Is you can travel most of Asia.
I mean, you can travel from Dubai. You can travel to a lot of different places. It's very central for that, but it also depends on the ages of your kids. We did a fair bit of travel, but there were also, we were sort of restricted by the age of the kids as well.
Oh, well, because I often reflect on it, because again, talking to Richard all the time, he'll regularly do like weekend trips to somewhere different to go and explore. And I'm often jealous of that. And then I stop and I'm like, well, hold up, I could easily go and explore most of Europe. It's a short flight to most of it, and yet most people don't do that, right?
Or how much of the UK have you explored? I'm born and raised in West London, and the amount that I've travelled in the UK, probably a lot less than I've travelled around Europe or other places in the world. So but people often do that, right? They look,
of course,
they look over the fence and see a greener grass of what people are doing. But you probably could do a lot here as well.
Speaking of grass is greener, a lot of people want to make that leap and step forward and steps up the ladder. People want to take 5 steps up the ladder, not 1 step up the ladder. But I don't think people often reflect on what getting there means and what it looks like. You've been a global CEO, right? What does success look like to you now?
In terms of, I mean, that's a difficult question, right? As a global CEO, what success looks like are numbers on the board. Although there should be, it depends on the culture of the organization, and it's down to you as the global CEO to set the culture as much as you can. Obviously, shareholders, whether the company's private, public, they will have an impact on the culture of the business. But success is really leading an organization to, fundamentally, you have to have commercial success. Otherwise, you won't have an organization. But secondly, and I think what's becoming more important now, and is actually really important in my eyes, is what the organization is doing for everyone that it serves, whether it's the shareholders, whether it's the management, the employees, the customers, most importantly. What product are you supplying? Is it good? Are you doing the right things as a business? So commercial is important because you have to keep the lights on, you have to pay the staff, you have to do all those things. But actually, the what your product is doing for the world is important. And in finance, that's a hard one, especially in retail derivative trading. So you have to look at other things like, one of the things I implemented, one of the first things I implemented as the CEO was giving everyone 2 days a year to go and do something outside of work. And whether that's planting trees, or whether it's working in a soup kitchen or working for a charity, or whatever it was, that was one of the first policies that I put out.
And what was the reason behind that?
Very much the giving something back to the sort of community that you're benefiting from as a business. But also giving the people that are working in the business a bit of roundedness is the wrong word, but giving them some perspective on the world. We can sit in the ivory towers that are Canary Wharf or the city, and very, in a very privileged situation to be travelling in from where we live and working in these lovely offices. And we should actually take time out to reflect on the rest of what's going on, and helping as much as we can with that.
Do you reflect on yourself? Do you feel successful?
That's a hard one. Do I feel successful? I think I am. I'm happy with, when I look back on things, I'm happy with kind of the steps on the ladder, and where I've gone and where things have worked out. Obviously, there are things I would change, of course.
Is there any advice that you were given that you ignored that you wish you hadn't?
I think one thing that I don't know whether I should have listened to it, but it's one thing that echoes in my mind a lot is, don't be so impatient to change all the time. So I was leaving Dubai. I've been there for 4 years, and I had spent that time building up that business, which was hard work. Built the business and got to kind of the 4th year cycle and gone, I'll be doing the same thing next year. It's sales numbers. It's bigger regions. Yes, the numbers are going up, but fundamentally, I'm doing the same project. And I wanted to come back to London, and I wanted to get involved in a bigger part of the group business. And one of the people in Dubai said to me, "Look, you've worked hard to build this up. Why don't you enjoy it for a bit longer?" And that sometimes does come back and haunt me when I'm starting another project that's hard. But I mean, I enjoy that bit of the startup phase of things, getting it going. How do you solve it? How do you build it? And you're building a team. And once those problems are solved and the team is working, I feel like and there's a natural leader a natural successor. I feel I want to step away and move on to the next project.
Okay. Oh, that's part of why we'll come back to building a team in a second. But that's part of why I asked the question, because I find that everyone I speak to, the more successful they are, they just find a new project, if that makes sense, right? No matter where they get to on the ladder. The amount of people that I've now, 20 years of recruitment experience, that I spoke to when they were a junior, and it's like, my career ambition is to be whatever, head of compliance for a hedge fund. And they hit that at 30 something. And having got there, they then realign and go, what actually do I want to do? And, let's go back to, you talked about building a team and natural successors and stuff like that. Like, what's your philosophy on hiring? Do you hire people smarter than you?
Yeah. I mean, you have to hire the best people. You have to be surrounded by the best people you can. And I don't think as a leader you should fear the people that are working in your team. You've absolutely got to hire the smartest people you can. But I think culture there is really important. And often people are ambitious, but if you've hired the right people and they are ambitious, and you invest in them and help shape their career and what they want, why on earth should you fear bringing in people like that? Because they're either going to move on and up or away and do interesting things. But if you're worried about your job and sitting in your job, for me, that's not something that applies, because I'm always looking for, once I've built the project, I kind of think of things on a project basis. I'll be moving on to a different project. So, I'm always looking to bring good people on.
So how does someone stand out to you? If we're talking, I find it fascinating in my industry, right, that I present you with a piece of paper and that dictates whether you meet someone or not. Now, maybe that's a bit flippant, because when I recruit for you, we talk and I say, I like this one, or for these reasons, and try and give a bit of a background and a premise. But when you pick that piece of paper up, what are your eyes drawn to? What matters?
I think there's, whatever role it is you're recruiting for, there's some fundamental blocks that you need. And if the CV says that the person has those blocks, and you then speak to them, it becomes about personality. And whether or not people might not have everything that you want on paper, or they might have a piece of paper that says they have everything you want. And when you speak to them, you can I can anyway, I very quickly get to the crux of, is this someone that they get it and we can work together? And you either click or you don't. And I think if you don't have that sort of chemistry of working together with that person, it's going to be really hard to bring them into the team and work and blend the team and have a bigger working team together.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you have someone with the right mindset and not the perfect experience,
Yeah.
I will always take mindset over experience, because I think you can build as a team together. You build experience, and depending on the style of how you work with your team, that is, that's a key component. Well, to give you an example of that, working in compliance at IG, open plan office, people would come in, they'd ask me a question, walk past the whole team, ask me a question. I'd sort of, quite loudly, because I have a loud voice anyway, as I'm told, I'd sort of talk through it with them and think through the problem out loud with them by asking questions. And my purpose of that was so that the team could follow it through with me and get to the answer along with the person that was asking the question usually. So that was kind of my way of bringing them along the journey, giving them the experience. And it wouldn't be, sometimes that person would leave and whoever was there would ask a question, why this or why that? And that's what I enjoy doing, explaining to the team and helping them learn and get more varied experience.
And does that change based on the role and based on the country? I'm just thinking, I've never had a job called into us for us to recruit for where someone hasn't said the most important thing is personality fit for the business, right? But every business we engage with have completely different personalities and different types of people that work there. I remember, I've got to be careful what I say here. I remember, I would say, a mid-tier European bank calling me in and saying, actually, on the compliance side, this was compliance advisor, personality is the absolute key because they have to get what we are as a business.
Yeah.
And I got invited into that business, 100-person open plan floor, right? So the CEO, the general counsel, and the CFO had offices. Everyone else is out on the floor together. HR come and met me in reception, walked me up to give me this tour of what they are and to talk me through, this is finance, this is risk, this is compliance. We walk through the doors and it's silent.
Yeah.
And everyone in there kind of turns and like has a little look like, who's this guy? Why is he here? And I walk the length of what their office is, getting one by one told what every desk is. And then we turn around and we walk back and I didn't hear anyone speak. And then we walked out and the head of HR says to me, oh, so you're comfortable, you know what we're about now? I went, how do I pick personality from that? I didn't see one from anyone.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with things on a global basis and also whatever, a sales role in comparison to a compliance role in comparison to a risk role, like, do you have to get into a mindset of this is what I need here, or how do you start what fit?
Yeah, I think they're very different, and some examples of building the first kind of the first business team that I built in Dubai. When I'm hiring for finance, I had a finance. It's a very different role and personality. So I'd say compliance, finance, risk, ops are kind of your key lieutenants as a CEO, because they're the brakes.
Yeah.
They're the people that are sort of pulling back and going, hang on, let's think about this again, or whatever it is. And then you've got the likes of, you've got your maybe market analyst, who's a person in front of the camera that loves talking about the markets. Your head of premium client management, whose job is just to schmooze essentially and problem solve for your high net worth clients, and then the sales guys. And there's kind of two different elements. So it's not just personality for the role, but I guess it's which side of the fence do you fall into, and can you go across the fence as well? Yeah.
And do you have to change the fence when you move from compliance to business or to leader?
So I think I've been comfortable on both sides.
Yeah.
So I know, obviously I know both the areas that need to, both the jobs that need to be done essentially.
Yeah.
And I think it's a discipline of, I think you have to have a discipline of applying a certain skill set at a certain time.
Yeah.
So even in my most recent roles, when there's a consultation paper that comes out that's an important one, I'll sit down and read the consultation paper, not because I enjoy them, but because I think if you don't have that discipline to do that, then when you're sitting with your head of compliance or your chief compliance officer, you're beholden to what they're telling you's in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't trust them.
Yeah.
But that you might have an angle on it that they haven't, or they haven't read certain steps that the regulator might be moving towards, or those kind of things. So I think the more skill sets that you can apply to the situation, the better. So not only personality, but the discipline to be able to kind of fit into different mindsets at different times.
How do you find the time to read those consultation papers? How do you find the time to do any of it? Like, what's a normal daily routine for a?
Yeah, it's quite meeting heavy, let's say, and depending on the stage of the organisation that you're working at, I think as a CEO you have more or less time with day-to-day operational things.
Yeah.
So my usual day as a CEO would be an early start, 8 in the morning through to 6 o'clock usually.
Yeah.
And there would be lots of meeting blocks in there, and they would be committees, or they would be working with groups on certain topics, and then you would have to have some kind of focus time to sit back and think about things.
Yeah.
And in that focus time, you might set I'm going to do 60 minutes or 30 minutes of just pure reading on certain thing, and work out what's in there.
Yeah. Okay. And does that change when you deal with things on a global basis? Because surely by the time you've got in at 8 or whatever time it is you start, your offices that are ahead of you are
already packing your inbox. Yeah. So it does. A lot of the time you would have, dealing with Australia, for example, and being in the UK, you'd have to have early meetings, early committees, early boards that might have been 6 or 7 a.m. Not regularly. Every sort of couple of months or something, you'd have that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you also need to have someone who's helping you organise those things, I think. So, a good EA or chief of staff that's helping you to actually bring through the things that are really important. Because if you've got a high volume of things, there might be something lurking in there that's super important that doesn't get picked up. And it's very useful to have a second pair of eyes looking over things and helping you with your calendar.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back a bit. We were talking about getting your attention, I guess is the way I'm going to phrase it. But in essence, me putting that bit of paper in front of you, what are your eyes naturally drawn to? Because I get that personality matters once they're in the room. But let's say you stick up an advert tomorrow for a head of ops, for a head of compliance, whatever. You could get 500 applications, right?
Yeah.
How do you filter? How do you?
I'm lucky enough to not have to filter all 500 usually, and delegate to the teams to actually hire or get people through to a certain stage. And I think if you're working closely with your exco, they know what's going to fit, because it's not necessarily fitting your personality. It's fitting the culture of the business and how the business operates. And so I think that's the most important thing to be able to navigate for anyone that comes into an org. It's can they fit in that org? Can they work in the way the team is structured, the culture, and do those things? I think that's more important than having an individual fit with the CEO, because as we see, CEOs change.
100%. And if you went somewhere new now, and you're told we're a successful commercial business, but culturally we're getting it all wrong, how do you start to make that change?
I think the very first conversation is with the shareholder, or so if I'm going in as a CEO, it's absolutely with the shareholders and the board, and saying, what culture do you want? Because and why? Because a lot of the time people will say, we want X, Y, Z, and do they? Do they really? And how long do they want it for? Because it's hard to change a culture of a business, but doable. Absolutely doable.
Do people have to change to make the change?
I think if you're truly, as a group CEO, if you are in charge of setting the culture, you can do that by making demands of the team around you, your exco, to help set the tone. But you have to set it. You have to be the one that's actually doing town halls and saying, this is what we want. This is our strategy. This is what we want from you guys as a team. And this is what's important. And as I said, one of the first things that I did as Group CEO was put in the first policy and made a point of saying, guys, this is the first policy, and it was for the staff to say, go out and engage with the communities and do something, give something back.
Yeah. So having been through everything you've been through, what's your relationship like with failure?
With failure, I think you win or learn.
Yeah.
I think that's how do you define failure?
Yeah.
I think is the is what I would ask, because everyone fails every day.
Yep.
And if you look at if you read about the sports people, and one of the things that I saw on LinkedIn, I think recently, it comes to mind is Roger Federer saying he lost X amount of points, and it was 60% of every point he's ever played.
Yeah.
He's lost, and you have to focus on what you're doing at the time, and that's super important. But when it's past, it's past.
Yeah.
And you go on to the next thing. And I think that's for me, I think that would be the key way to deal with it. Once you have to be in the moment, you have to do what you can, but then you have to move on.
Yep.
So, you can fail at something and then go, okay, but that was yesterday, so let's move on to something else.
Yeah. It's interesting. The biggest thing I find fascinating doing what I do, when I first got into it, and most of the time when we hire fresh trainees, people believe like the senior people are the super scary people. And actually it's the complete opposite. The more I engage with senior people, the more friendly they are, and the more I realize the reason people get there is they are learning all the time, but also they're either insanely intelligent or insanely emotionally intelligent, and they're either a people person or a numbers person, if that makes sense. But I always find that they're not scary and so easy to engage with. And I think part of that is the understanding that we all fail together, and it's ownership of things. Because the biggest thing I think I reflect on when talking to senior people is anytime something goes wrong, they take responsibility for it going wrong. Whereas when I engage with people as they're going through the levels, often people are looking to pass blame. Would you say the overlap between success in sport and success in business is mindset in that, guys, then, or?
Yeah, I think it's mindset, and it depends where your mindset comes from. It could be sport, but it could be a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But I think an easy way to equate it is people that do sport and to a high level.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm encouraging my kids to do. And it's something that I've seen in teams that I've worked with. I'm half conscious that people might say, well, what about you? And I say, no, I was never good at sport.
Yeah.
So there must have been another way that I appreciated things, or built my mindset. And I think actually that was through the working career that I've had.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be through sport, but I think maybe you get up the ladder quicker if you've already built that mindset earlier on.
Great question to follow up then. How do you get up the ladder quicker? What advice would you give people now to accelerate careers?
Yeah, tough one. I think you need to first be confident and jump into things with the right intention. So when you asked me about imposter syndrome, and I said, no, I didn't even really think about it. It's because I kind of have the confidence that I will do my best.
Yep.
I'll apply what I have and work very, very hard at it.
Yeah.
And make it work.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing. Coming back, the key attribute I think is hard work.
Yeah. Has your thought process changed over the years? Not quite sure what I'm trying to ask here, but the responsibility of being a father suddenly means you've got more responsibility than you had before to provide, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I look back on my career, I spent 5 years in a big corporate and then decided to launch Black Swan with a couple of others. And at the time, loads of people told me that it was too early, silly, etc. But actually at the time I had no responsibility at all, right? I was a single guy in London. I could have rushed off back to my parents' house and started again if needs be. But because I had nothing to lose, I was dive in head first. If someone came to me now and said, hey, do you want to go and take a risk with a wife, a kid, a mortgage, etc., I'm not sure my risk appetite's the same. Yeah. Has your journey changed? Has your risk appetite changed? Has that confidence changed on your journey?
I think if you overthink things too much, it puts you in a state of paralysis.
Yeah.
So if you think about all the things that could go wrong and where you could end up, I think you don't want to do many things.
Yeah.
And I think roles that people end up in usually naturally reflect their personality.
Yeah.
So if you're a compliance officer, I think it's you like the rules.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to step out of your comfort zone on things, because that's not what, the regulation is sort of fairly binary on things. So I think the more responsibility you have, obviously, that can constrain you. But I think it's also, you have to be responsible. But I think the less you think about how much could go wrong and are on the side of, have that confidence to go for it. As long as you have a plan B that you can switch to, I think you should go for it.
Yeah. I think there's the brand, I don't know the exact Branson quote, but it's say yes and worry about how you're going to do it afterwards, right? What are the habits that every aspiring leader should start to build then?
Well, from my perspective, I think you have to be true to yourself, number one. So when I did my first town hall as the global CEO, I answered a lot of questions about, or I went through the strategy and then had a Q&A session. I think the best question I was asked is, what kind of a CEO are you going to be?
Yeah.
And my answer to that was, actually, I've never thought about that. But in all the roles that I've done, I've only ever been myself and brought my whole self to the role.
Yep.
And I think that's what you have to do. You have to be completely yourself, and you can polish yourself up maybe 10%.
Yeah.
And there's some habits that you could tone down, which are probably a good idea. In a workplace, but you can only do that a certain amount, and you are who you are.
Yeah.
And if you find relationships important in your wider life, then you're probably going to find them important at work as well. And and the same with, if you are a numbers guy, then the job you should probably do, if you naturally like numbers, you might become an accountant. If you naturally like rules, you might become a traffic warden or a compliance officer. But it's those kind of things. You need to fit what you're doing to your personality as well, because it's so much of your life, your working life is so much of your life that you have to fit that in. And what you should be building is what works for you throughout the course of your life. So I don't think it's two separate things. I don't think, what do I need to do to get ahead at work is any different to what you should be doing to be living a good life.
Yeah. I always find it fascinating because we're frequently asked, like, what am I going to be asked in the interview? Do you know what I mean? What should I say? How should I go about saying it, etc.? And I so frequently say to people, just be yourself.
Yeah, tell the truth.
Because if you go in there and con your way into a job, you'll probably hate it when you get in there anyway.
Yeah.
There's definitely a balance and a mindset of preparing for it. Like, a lot of people don't prep for an interview. And when I say prep for an interview, I don't just mean researching the company. I mean remembering who you are, if that makes sense. We've all done things, achieved things, got stories to tell. But a lot of people freeze because they don't pre-think about them, if that makes sense. Or the opposite end of the spectrum, where people prepare 5 stories that they want to tell in an interview, and no matter what they get asked, they just start telling their stories because they want to get it across, if that makes sense. Again, looking for that guidance piece for future leaders or for people that want to develop, like, everyone's looking for a shortcut. Like, are there bits and pieces that you can do to grow quicker? Like, can you get, how do you go above and beyond? What's past the norm?
So the number one thing that I would say to people is you've got to develop the appetite to work hard, right? Which is I know I'm repeating, but it's what I said before. But if you're a hard worker, and you do your job well, and then you look at over and above that, if you came to me and said, look, I'm nailing. You didn't want to say I'm nailing my job, but you come in and you say, look, I'm doing my job well.
Yeah.
I think. How can I grow?
Yeah.
There is one of the things that I do always have done is do a kind of a 3-month personal development plan session with my team.
Yeah.
And I always say, look, I don't want you to get to a point where you've outgrown the job or you're bored or whatever it is, and then I lose you. And if I don't know what you want to do and what you want to aspire to, and there isn't a plan for that, then we can't plan for you.
Yeah.
So always sit down with the team and say, what do you want?
Yeah.
And usually they say, I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to do Z. Okay, so let's start off with a SWOT analysis on yourself. Go and fill in a SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
And come back, and then I might add some points to it from my perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they come back and they go, oh yeah, no, I'm missing this bit. And you go, okay, so let's have a personal development plan for you.
Yeah.
That fills that bit in.
Yeah.
Or addresses an issue, so that you can then move on to the next part of your career that you want to do.
Yeah.
And some of the time, unfortunately, you sit down with team members and you go through that and you work out that their route is actually probably to leave the organization at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
But it might be, you might say, okay, you can do this for 6 months, you can do that for 6 months, and that we can work on all this. But then if what you want doesn't come up internally, that's fine. You can look outside, and you might only kind of get your fulfillment by going outside and doing that. But what I would ask is, give me 2 years.
Yeah.
We'll build this experience for you. We'll build the pathway that you want to go on.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go outside, that's fine.
Yeah. I find it fascinating how frequently people phone us and say, I've got to go externally because there's no pathway for me here, days after I've had a meeting with their boss who's told me how much they value that person.
Yeah.
But that conversation doesn't happen back and forth. So it's interesting when you mentioned that personal development plan. Are there bits and pieces you can do to show it? Like you've said, you've got to work hard. There's two things that people never say to us, right? Like every candidate that phones in looking for a new job, everyone believes they're underpaid. I've never once had someone say to me, do you know what, actually I'm more than happy with what I get. But also everyone believes they work hard. Yeah. I'm not saying that means that not everyone does work hard, but people definitely have different levels of capacity and different levels of output and different levels of capability. Like what does hard work actually mean to you? Yeah,
I think you can work hard and not achieve what you need to achieve.
Yeah.
And I think the only way you can, I don't think you can comment on yourself working hard. I think it's a comment that comes from your network, either above you, below you, or your peers, will be the people that actually say, yeah, that's a hard-working person. But obviously, putting the hours in is one element of it. But working efficiently, working in the right way, producing actually what's needed, rather than what you can produce, I think is another key thing. So if you are working on a presentation deck for a QBR, for example, you need to know what the output, what's expected by the people around the table in the QBR. Like, why are you producing this thing? It's not for you to put everything that you know into a presentation. It's tell the people in the presentation what they need to know. So it's not only working hard, because you can put like loads of slides together. It's actually it's having the awareness to read the room. And say, okay, I need to put X, Y, Z into it. My message is. And my message is this within the context of what you want to hear.
Have you ever felt overwhelmed?
Have I felt overwhelmed? I mean, a lot goes on in organizations, and I think the key thing, so yes, I do sometimes feel overwhelmed, but I think you just need to go back to, okay, what can I deal with now? Because you can only control what you can control. And I think that's the key thing in being overwhelmed. It's about being able to make the right decisions in the right time frame. And that is all you can do. So you might end up in a situation that's a difficult situation, but you can only control what's in your control, and you have to appreciate that, because some things will happen. And you have to have mechanisms to deal with that. Because you don't always get the things that you want, we don't always get the outcomes that you want. That, you have to be able to deal with that. But also, you have to appreciate and be able to I can't say that. You need to put it in the right box.
Yeah.
To not worry about the things. It goes back to failure. You go back to things that have happened in the past that were beyond your control, or even if it was in your control and you made a mistake. You need to learn from that, appreciate that, and apply it in a positive way the next time.
Yeah. That's interesting. The reason I asked the overwhelm piece is in our industry, things come in waves, if that makes sense. Like there'll be periods of time when no one's hiring, and then all of a sudden everyone's hiring. And every time we get a job call to us, it's like, Jim, we need someone, we need them yesterday. A lot of the time nowadays, it's like we've had this role open for 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks, if not months, using our internal team or other agencies or whatever it might be. So if you're working this, you've got to work it now. And for me as a leader of our business, I get to the end of a working week and I frequently say to the team, Jim, what have we achieved or what have we done or whatever? And I'm told how hard everyone's worked, but we might not have sent any CVs. And the bottom line is that's what we do. That's the output that we need to achieve. But actually we've got 20 meetings booked in the next week to speak with decent candidates so we can send a better shortlist if we wait. And it's that when I feel overwhelmed, it's when I'm sat there going, well, hold up, there's 20 clients we're letting down at the moment. And the way my mind works, I'm like, let's get some CVs out to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them so that we feel like we're getting them off our books, if that makes sense. I regularly talk to my wife about like, I see my inbox like a game of tennis, if that makes sense, right? Like someone sends me something, I desperately want to go, that's straight back at you. Like this is on you to come to me rather than me to come to you, because then I don't feel as if I'm getting overwhelmed. And surely doing the role that you're doing, there must always be people that want your time, right? I regularly look at my working day. Like in the build up to this, I'm like, I know you're arriving at a certain time. I know I need to do a bit of prep, make sure I've thought about what I want to do. And I block that little slot off thinking, right, that's when I'll do it. And then as I go to sit down, one of the team says, oh, can I grab you for a minute? And all of a sudden you're here and the time's run out, right? How do you protect yourself? Like, how do you protect your time? How do you make it work?
I think you have to put certain rules in place and sort of focus time. I'm smiling because I had a rule, again, when I was working back in Dubai, that I didn't take meetings before 11 o'clock from certain people. Because I knew that that meeting would take a long time. And probably not put the most positive slant on things. So I would sandwich it in between a time where I knew that I could sort of deal with that meeting, and then if I needed to, I could head out the office and go for a walk around the block and come back. So that was, one, you just got to organise it and set rules and stick by them. So literally to a point where someone would come in, a particular person would come in and say, sorry, can you come off? You're coming in after 11, thank you. And send them away again.
And you shared that with people? People knew that there was an 11 o'clock rule, or?
I mean, so the Exco team that I was working with, yes. For everyone else, is an open door policy, generally. But they would sometimes, someone might pop in and go, have you got 5 minutes? Actually, I don't, because I've got to do this or that or the other. Can you come back at this time?
That makes sense. If you started from scratch today, what area of financial services would you recommend people to work in? The world's changing at speed, right?
Yeah, it's changing. It is changing. Where do you start? I think there's, crypto's massive at the moment. What can we do with crypto? Is it a currency? Is it something that can, you can tokenize things and do interesting things with tokenization to make the world more efficient? So I was recently having a conversation with a friend of mine who's not in finance, and he was asking what I thought of crypto and how it worked. And I said, I don't think it's necessarily a way of transferring wealth or a currency, although that's useful outside the banking system, etc., and can speed things up. But we were discussing buying a house. And I said, if you buy a house in London today, it's a very convoluted and lengthy process. You could possibly tokenize houses in the way that you have everything you need for a house sale transaction that can happen a lot quicker. Yet you need to go through all the checks and stuff. But conveyancing, if you think about conveyancing, how archaic is that process that you have to go through? Why can't you do all that and put it onto onto a sort of a crypto ledger somewhere where it's searchable in a much quicker way, or you prepare it in one go. So when you're selling your house, or
Yeah.
you it's part of the things that you put together.
Yeah.
It would make it a lot quicker to be able to buy and sell houses, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one use case. But I think there's a lot more when people think about it. But I think it's specific to it has to be specific to your industry, and you have to know, okay, I've bought a house, so I know what that process is. But there's a lot of other industries that people have to understand what crypto can do, or tokenization, or distributed ledgers, and that once that's understood in a wider concept, there'll be ways in which they can be applied to other business models. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing that comes up. So crypto's AI as well. I'm actually doing a course at the moment in AI, which is quite interesting, at the University of Oxford, like an online 6-week course on AI. And it has really it opened my eyes in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that what's being built in terms of AI is actually modeled on people's brains, right? So it's literally, the way your eye works, it's a lot of inputs through different kind of light lenses and things like that, and you can replicate that through AI.
Yeah.
So if the input is X, then you go through a different series of thoughts, and the outcome is Y. Then that can be modeled. So if you can do it, if you can think of it, or you can bring it through, through your retina or whatever, how else can you apply that in a wider sense? I think that's going to be an absolutely fascinating one, AI. And I don't think it's something that we should fear in terms of the workforce, but how it works outside of the workforce. I think great minds have to come up with a good solution to how we control it.
Yeah. So what skills are you teaching your kids to learn, or encouraging your kids to learn at the moment in that, guys?
So at the moment, my kids are 15 and 12, and they play a lot of sport.
Yeah.
So they're, I think, hopefully learning the hard work element, and building work ethic. In terms of things that I'm frequently sort of trying to teach them or discuss with them, I unfortunately push my own interests on them in a way which are how geopolitics, geography, the way where things are, the importance of different kind of countries and regimes working together, which is interesting at the moment with Trump and Putin and all those things, but also the very basics of finance. Because when I say finance, I mean this is a bank account. That's an interest rate. What's an interest rate and what's inflation? I had a conversation with my son yesterday, who's 12, and he was talking about bank interest. He's got an account with a neobank, and I think they just advertised an interest rate for UK people. And I said, is that good? I said, well, yeah, it's good to get interest on your money, but you can't just leave your money in the bank, because if the inflation rate is 7.9% or whatever it is, and your bank interest rate's 4%, it's still it's very good, 4%. But after a year of inflation, the things that you need to buy are going to be 7.9% more expensive, and you're going to have got 4% for your cash. So when you measure it that way, you say, well, what's best to do? Do you leave your money in the bank, or do you invest it in an asset class, whatever that asset class is? And this is not a sell for CFDs, but it's it could be housing, it could be bonds, it could be whatever it is. But you've got to appreciate that money in the bank is, yes, you are getting interest, but there's also inflation. So I mean, it's probably a very boring conversation to have with a 12-year-old. But he asked me. So.
But there's so many pieces I think that just aren't discussed in life that you don't realise until you learn, if that makes sense. I was just thinking, when you talk about interest rate, then chatting to a number of my friends and people that I would deem to be relatively successful in what they do, a lot of them hadn't picked up on the fact that you pay income tax on interest outside of your ISAs, obviously, etc. mainly because interest rates have been so low that even if they do a yearly return,
wasn't
the number that pops up, they don't notice, and therefore it's not a thing. All of a sudden it changes, and they're sat there with a yearly return going, hold on, I owe a few hundred or a few thousand or money that I didn't expect to owe. What's that for? And they've gone back and searched and realised that the money you've already been taxed on time and time and time again, really, once it's gone through the system, you're still getting taxed on them once you've got savings. And I think that's one of the bits a lot of people miss when we're talking about the difference between inflation and a mortgage payment and your savings is fundamentally a lot of the time holding savings when you've got other debt. The maths is not just the comparable rates, it's everything else that goes into it and the cost of money.
Sure, and there's lots of different scenarios that you can look at things like. I grew up with the adage of renting is dead money.
Yeah.
But actually, if you do the math, sometimes you look at it and you go, if you've got X amount of money, if you've got 100 grand or you've got 100 grand deposit for a house, but you put that into a fund or an ETF or something like the FTSE, a FTSE tracker, and you rented, the differential between the increase in the ETF fund over 10 years and the house price over 10 years, probably the fund outperforms the house. And so, when you do the maths, you've probably been better off having invested the money in a fund rather and lived in a rented house. But we as people are, it's not, that's just pure numbers. Right. But you probably want to live in your own house at the same time. So you'll pay for the privilege of doing what you want sometimes with it not being the best investment, but it's got to be holistic and rounded.
So one of the things I have to do as this pod progresses, so long as we keep progressing and stick with it, I really want to get a wealth manager on, because when I watch other people's podcasts at the moment, the biggest advice given by wealth managers is don't buy a house and don't pay down a mortgage and rent instead because the maths is better. But I've never, ever heard any of them. When I say I need to get someone on, I want to challenge all of that and kind of want to push back on what you just said in that, guys, because exactly those pieces, right? Well, one of the biggest things that I hear said regularly is when you own your own house, you pour money into it, whereas when you rent a house, you don't tend to do anything up or make it nicer. But there's definitely a level of opportunity cost with the happiness that you feel living somewhere where it's not yours and doesn't feel like your home. And I think the other piece is like what your intended outcomes of everything are, if that makes sense. Are you building generational wealth for someone to pass down on the future? I get that we haven't seen that kind of house price growth that the generations before saw, but ultimately I know whatever family, friends that bought houses for £50,000 that are now worth way north of 10, 15, 20 times what they paid for them, right? We might not get to see the same, but they're passing an asset to their offspring or their offspring's offspring, who may or may not have an opportunity to even get onto the ladder in the first place unless someone helps them out. So I think there's so much more in everything that we choose to invest in or not. But I just find it fascinating that almost the premise of having savings, if you have other debt, doesn't quite add up. Because the freedom of getting away from the debt is a bigger noose around the neck in my eyes. And
sure,
don't get me wrong, I'm no financial advisor myself, but I just find it amazing that there's such a push on that advice. And I wonder if we see house prices change because of it. Because if the world moves to a renting, or certainly the UK moves to a renting market, pricing will change.
Yeah, I mean, the cynic in me says, why is that getting pushed? Is it coming from above? And people are saying, well, we want the story to now be don't buy, when 30 years ago everyone was being encouraged to buy.
Exactly that.
So it's an interesting one, but also I think the arguments for renting over buying are also different today because of geographical flexibility, where you can go. As you said, Richard was in Singapore. Richard's now in Dubai. Whether or not he's bought a place in Singapore and Dubai or the UK, you've got a greater commitment over a longer period of time if you buy buy a property with a 30-year mortgage. Although, of course, you can move out and rent it and stuff like that, but that comes with a lot of difficulty as well. You know, if you can convert your mortgage to do that, if you can get the right tenants, you've got manager tenants, there's all those things to go as well. But yeah, I mean, I believe in property anyway, and you know, have done from a young age. It's an asset class that my background and my parents' generations and stuff like that was super important. But I actually had a conversation with my sister recently about it, and she said maybe that was their generation. And now for, you know, the generation today and our kids and stuff like that, that shouldn't be the narrative. Maybe it's just changing over time.
Well, I think also part of it's like the learns of what you create, if that makes sense. Like I've watched a lot of successful people talk and explain that they don't believe you should pass much on to your children, because if they don't have to work for it, if they don't build that hard work ethic that you've talked about, they might not turn out to be the best versions of themselves if things come at them too easily, if that makes sense. So I think there is a bit of a pushback in that, guys, as well. So final bits and pieces. So if you were to give advice to people out there now, I've asked the question a couple of times, and I feel like we've talked about it, but we've skirted around it, if that makes sense. I'm putting together my 1 to 500 piece of paper CV to put in front of yourself wherever you are, whatever you're doing. What matters? What stands out? How do I get myself in the room in the first place? I can't. If I write my CV, I work hard, you're not going to believe me, are you?
No, I mean, it depends on the level the role is. So if it's a relatively entry level role, so first 3 years, you say, I would look at university. And what they've been doing for the last 3 years. Is it 3 different jobs? Is it 1 job in the same place? Is it a good name company? Those would be the core things. Now, the more senior you go in roles, it's all about the blocks on the CV for me. You know, can you see the progression? Have they stuck to one thing, or have they been jumping around, or have they, you know, one of the key things that I really can't get past are people that move jobs every 2 years. And they, you know, there's a clear path of that over like over a 10-year career. If they move every 2 years, different roles, not different roles, but different companies, it's very difficult for me to hire thinking more than 2 years in the future. So I say, well, you know, I bring you in, it's going to take you a year to kind of become useful in the org, and then after that is what are you going to, you know, how long are you going to stay and add value after you've taken the value? Can
people not progress at different speeds? You talked before about projects and blocks is everything you do. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, but could it not be the case that in 2 years you can achieve what it takes me 5 years to achieve?
I think people can progress at different speeds. But then there's got to be give and take in the relationship in any kind of firm. So I mean, if when I wanted to move on to a project, for example, for me, if I went to my boss and said, look, I've done this now, I'm a bit bored. You know, can I move on to something else? The answer might be, well, we need you to do it for another 12 months. Appreciate that. Let's think about that. Let's plan that. I still need you to do X. And fine. Okay, I'll do X. And then can we have a conversation about it again later? So I think you've got to earn that right as well, you know.
But to answer your guidance, don't let me put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but your guidance to someone, if someone feels they've achieved everything they can in their current role, and it may be within that 2-year window, your guidance is go and speak to your direct manager and say, how do I get more? What do I have to do to justify you giving me that opportunity?
Because rather than if someone came to me and they've been in a role for 2 years and they're nailing it and they're really good at the role, and say, you know, we can build this into something bigger for you. Let's plan it. This would come up in the kind of what I'm talking about, the SWOT, the PDP process. What do you want to move to? And you say, okay, this is the core of what you're going to do, because this is your job, this is what you get paid for. But there are projects that are going on that you can learn from, and I can put you into committees to observe, or, you know, projects to learn a bit about how a project works in IT, for example, and you would go along and be useful. You know, that's going to be useful to you because you're going to learn. Are you going to add value to be in that room? Maybe not. But that's the investment that we're going to put in you. for your loyalty of doing this job that we need you to do.